All right. Thanks for tuning in into the weekly Precision Markets office hours chat with your Precision Markets coach, Brian. We have these every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to be able to answer any questions that you have about trading. We use this in a visual format too, so that we can share charts, pictures, and any kind of other items. So the way this format is, if it's your first time joining with us, is in the chat box. I would like for you to ask any questions, and we'll answer them in the order that received. It has to be respectful to people's orders and the questions. And we'll try to accomplish and answer as many questions as we can in the next 30 minutes, as well as be able to show charts. Feel free to come off mute when it's your time for your question. And with that, I'll go ahead and let y'all not be shy and answer any questions y'all have in the chat. All right. So our first question we got is from Peachy. And Peachy asks, what is your take on EU, GU, and NASDAQ? So give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if y'all can see my screen.
Yep.
All right, cool. So we'll start and just do a top-down analysis and just look at those. Let me go to, you said EU, GU, and NAS, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just start with GU. This is how I've kind of been looking at it. So today was a weird day for me in GU because from market structure standpoint, it came here for me and made a lower low to a lower high. Actually, let me draw that with a line. It came here from a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and it came up with some momentum and made a higher high. So this is what I see from current structure. I was looking at, for instance, this being a 4-hour demand zone that price would be reacting with. But now we're in between the last high and this last low, and we have price kind of just moving in a sideways motion. Now, granted, this was a holiday, so I'm going to go and back it up to the weekly. On the weekly perspective, price has been in a big drop, and it's come down really into what I would consider this last lower low that we had from a weekly perspective. And so it made a high. And now, considering this would be a demand zone, we have price that made this last kind of point. It came in, it didn't exactly break with a body close, and you notice that long wick. So, from a weekly perspective, if this demand zone was to hold, that would mean that, for instance, we would see price come and possibly go up from a weekly perspective. So, with that being the case, I'm looking at possibly considering from a 4-hour perspective that maybe we get some demand down here because notice how we ended up breaking structure. We have this lower high that broke. And so prices now end up going kind of forward. And what I was expecting for this week is price to kind of do something like this. But the one thing I don't really like is that it didn't really tap into a demand zone that I could visually see on the 4-hour. Maybe if you consider maybe this possibly a breaker block, this was a breaker block that it kind of tapped into. But I didn't really see the reason personally for the impulse. I would consider going down the 2-hour and see if I could find something. But even on the 2-hour, the only thing I could possibly have considered was there's some kind of breaker block. So I'm kind of waiting to see what happens if we get some downside, because what I really would help for me is price coming into this demand zone and then going up and clearing out that high. So from a short term, that's what I'm kind of looking for to see what happens. But we'll see. Maybe this area held and price ends up going this straight up. So that's what I kind of look at for GU. Now switching over to EU, let's take a look at EU. So from 4-hour perspective, we ended up having kind of the same kind of bullish impulse. So we came down from this higher high all the way to this lower low, lower high, lower low, higher high. And then we have price kind of tapped into it, depending on how you look at it. This is how I would have looked for a 4-hour zone, somewhere right here. Would have included that candle as well, because it's kind of, it was kind of like what's it called? Tweezer bottoms. So I would kind of consider this into my demand. So considering that it pretty much tapped this demand zone, and seeing that price went through, considering we had a holiday here, it's kind of expecting price to kind of keep going through and clear that high. So we'll see. It's kind of struggled here. It got to the point of almost, if you consider like all where these wicks were, it got into this kind of area and notice how it rejected. So I'm gonna switch, go up one time frame higher just to see. And pretty much like a similar thing to EU and GU, they pretty much almost look pretty similar. You have lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. And it didn't exactly go down this low. And you get this long wick. And now you get to this week starting with some bullish momentum. So depending on the weekly close, I'm expecting it to take out the high, make the high weak, and come all the way to probably in this area. And then we'll wait to see what happens, because this is essentially is a weekly supply zone. That was our last lower high, is now lower low. So now it looks like it'll be coming up into that area, and then we'll see what happens there. So for that reason, I'm kind of bullish on what I expect to see with, let me change this color real quick. There we go. Okay. So knowing that the 4-hour came from this high, lower low, lower high, lower low, higher high, I'm expecting it to kind of go past this high. This high's weak, and we start seeing some bullish momentum come in the market. But we'll have to wait and see what the market gives us. But today, I don't know what it could do, but depending on how it closes overnight for me, I might watch and see it do something like this and then eventually go through and break the high. So we'll see. But that's kind of what I'm looking at when it comes to EU, is looking for something to clear this last higher high and start kind of continuing with some bullish impulses. And then for the NASDAQ, well, NASDAQ's a funny situation and a funny story. So here, looking at the 4-hour, went from high, high, lower, low, lower, high, lower, low, lower, high, lower, low, lower, high, lower, low. And it came right into this supply zone. I'm expecting for our low, our sales to continue. So it came right into my 4-hour zone today. So now for the rest of the next maybe day or two, I'm expecting for us to be able to sell. Sorry, not demand, supply H4. So expecting for it to reverse here, see how the candles continue to close. When I go up to the weekly, it shows some bullish momentum here, but I'm really expecting for price to continue downward like that from a weekly perspective, because it's already broken past our last low. So I'm just expecting for it to continue momentum to the downside. There's nothing positive news-wise that's happening for any of these companies. There's nothing that the Fed is doing that seems to be helping. There's just a multiple reasons why I just don't believe that we've got to the bottom of the market. So weekly support is telling me that it's going to go down from what I can see from a market structure perspective. It tapped in from a 4-hour perspective, right where I was expecting for it to really find some reversal. So I'm gonna watch for the next day or two and literally just be looking at kind of sales until it continues to pass through. I'm expecting that this low is weak, so, and the high is protected. So that is kind of what my short-term perspective is for the next couple of days on all three pairs. Any kind of questions anybody has?
That's quite clear. Thanks.
No problem. What do y'all think? What are anybody else's thoughts? Anybody have different opinions or kind of different outlook when it comes to these pairs?
Yeah, just wrote the question following up to EU and GU analysis.
Oh, okay.
So, do you think if EU prints new higher high, because it's from what I see more likely to print the higher high first than GU, will the GU follow it?
They are very highly correlated. And if you notice, when I looked at both charts on the 4-hour and the weekly, they pretty much responded at the same points. So a couple of things that I think are interesting, you got to pay attention to, if I remember. Okay. So tomorrow we have the ECB speaking non-monetary policy meeting at 2 a.m. my Central Standard Time, which will be about 8 or 9 a.m. London time, right at the open. And then you have consumer confidence for the UK. And then I think on Thursday we have some more ECB meetings and such like that. On top of, we have the Fed speaking in front of Congress in the United States around a little bit after market open for the United States. So you got Fed Powell testifying, you got all of the Fed speaking later on and during the New York session. And then there's a continual follow-up. I think there's another conversation. We have some more just news, but Fed Powell testimony on Thursday as well. We got some news reactions that could possibly influence either a strong or weaker dollar. So if that happens and that be the case, say for instance, the dollar becomes weakened and there's good news on the UK side, it could possibly push up. Now, EU looks more likely, when I compare the two, EU looks more likely to push up before GU, just from what I can see now. But if they likely move in the same direction, so drilling how one goes, I don't look at the other going too much in a different direction, because by correlation I mean that when one thing happens, the other one tends to follow it, but not exactly. So I can see the case for both. I can see the case really for EU first clearing the high, and then I can see that GU would, tend to follow. So does that kind of answer your question, Peachy?
Yeah.
What kind of questions y'all guys have? What are y'all seeing on the market? It's been kind of tough because it seems like we have it's been kind of tough because it seems like we have a lot of holidays for the month of June, where basically we just took off every week in June, at least one day, it felt like. But also, guys, to keep in mind, the thing that we do in trading is we trade based upon what we see, yes, but there are things that kind of influence some of the things that happen. So when we talk about influences, we have the financial, we have what kind of federal policies are being made, we have interest rates, we have all kinds of things, because ultimately this ain't our market, it's the bank's market. The banks have to decide what they're doing, and then we kind of play based upon the footprints of what kind of things the banks show that their interests and intentions are. They decide levels of price where price is too low or not low enough, but we'll see. But I mean, there's catalysts for reasons why these things could go up, but also there's nothing that could stop it from also going down. So we just have to kind of watch and see. We try to make our most educated decisions. I mean, like for instance, GU, we're at the weekly demand zone, but the question is, does this demand hold? If it holds, great, then we might see price ricochet off of it. But if it doesn't hold, then we might see price come right through it. Coming from the weekly, this could have been, it looked like right here, probably if we go to the daily, let's see. This was a daily zone that price seemed to have reacted right off of. Price could still continue to go downward. And what we could end up seeing is price go out and clear this low, and we could actually get to the euro parity. It actually could be a euro dollar parity, but we'll see. Time will tell. But all we can do is kind of just pay attention to the market and see what kind of best things that we can.
Can you show maybe some examples how you enter on a candle break? If after the chalk, what would be your confirmations?
Well, it's pretty much the same like I showed in the video before. When it talks about, I do market executions, I don't do limits, but it's pretty much the same always, every time. You got to find a pattern, a candlestick pattern that you like, that you've back tested enough to be able to show that, for instance, that would be something that you would be likely to do. So for instance, let me see if I can find an example. Well, I'm not going to take any of these. I guess I can find, that's fine. So I'll give you an example here on the 15-second. Price comes, takes this high, takes this low. So now here you have a supply zone, right? And so say, for instance, I'm going in for a sell right here on GU, and price comes and taps into my zone. So I'm gonna go down to the 1 minute, and pretty much I'm looking for the exact same thing. Price comes and takes out this low right here. And I'm draw a line real quick so y'all can see it. So price comes, takes this low, it also taking this high. So therefore, let's say, for instance, I use this decisional zone right here, and that's where I want to see when price comes into, I'll take it entry. Price comes in, and let's say, for instance, I'm looking for wicks to the high. So I see my 2 wicks to the high. I see a reversal candlestick going in my direction, which it would be this gray candle, which that for me is a bearish candle. So on my charts, anything blue is bullish, anything gray is bearish. I see that rejection candlestick I'm looking for. This would be covering my entire zone. I'm gonna go a little bit higher because it's GU, and cover it a little bit more. So I cover it sometimes like a pip and a half, and then boom, the trade goes on. And that would be, for instance, be my entry trigger. So the key for market executions is just deciding what is what you need to see in order for you to press the trigger button. And then whatever that is, you always just look for that same trigger every single time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So definitely don't do too tight of a stop loss, because price can cover your spread, and then you can be knocked out by a spread. So you definitely want to do a little bit more above so you can cover that. And I think somebody was drawing something just a second ago. Ignacio, I believe. Did you have a question you want to ask real quick too? Feel free to come off mute. Okay. So you mentioned that you see another interest. You mentioned that you see another frequency. Another entry. Show me what you're talking about. Okay. So you got to break here over the high. Break here over the low. Yeah, and then you could use something like this. So let's say, for instance, you look for instance, the same type of thing, rejection candlestick. Here you have a bar that's going in your direction. You could take that, cover the zone, and do the same thing. So, I mean, all it comes down to is just figuring out what is going to be your rejection that you're looking for. And you can tie it to a candlestick, you can tie it to anything, but you just got to have some type of entry trigger that you use. And that's what you use for being your interest, your reason for getting into the trade. I hope that makes sense. All right. Peachy just asked, I just checked Nas, would you short of the current supply? Let me go take a look. Yeah, I think there was an injury somewhere over here. 1 second. Oh yeah, here it is. So here's the break. Looking for. Here is, I want to use this as a zone. So it hasn't really tapped my area where exactly I would have gotten in. But if it were to tap somewhere here, I would consider it. But this is past my trading hours too, so I wouldn't. Does that make sense, Pitchy?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, sometimes you get a rally, sometimes with news. So this is around 12 o'clock, between 12 and 2. Some days you can get a rally in NASDAQ and you'll see the market move and those type of things. But generally after 11, I'm kind of done, period, because it's not like high volume. But it really depends on what's going on with the market too, because it can be little things that will just set it off. What other questions, guys, do y'all have? Any other questions, guys? I know it hasn't been exactly an eventful start of the week. So there may not be much y'all may have questions about. Hopefully we'll get some more action this week. And then next week, we actually have a full week. And then the week after that, we have a holiday, because holidays seem to be the only thing that we do in the summer, right? With the way flight prices are, they shouldn't be having so many holidays. People should be at work. All right, guys. I am going to let y'all go. And we'll go ahead and call this an early one. But thank everybody for the questions. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, on Thursday, we have our Power Hour with Rob that we'll be doing, as well as if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out on the questions part of the Discord so that you can be able to ask any questions. And if you have anything that you need to want to work on, don't hesitate to reach out to any of the Precision Markets coaches, Rob, Nathan, or myself, and we can schedule one-on-one time with you and really work hands-on with you. So it's definitely a added benefit. Many people have shown in the testimonials that they're able to get a lot of hands-on learning and help them really improve certain aspects of their trading, because we're all here fighting for you in your corner. We want to see you succeed. So let us know how we can help. But with that, guys, I bid y'all adieu, and I will chat with y'all in Discord and wish y'all a great day, okay? Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Brian. See you.
See ya.